This is the sound of refusing to give in. It's leaving nothing to chance. Searching relentlessly for the right, the only treatment option that will keep a heart beating. Fortunately, the Christ Hospital Health Network has groundbreaking treatment options unavailable anywhere else in the country, developed with help from our own physicians. That's what makes us Greater Cincinnati's Heart Hospital and one of the top heart hospitals in the world. The Christ Hospital Health Network, everything it takes.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 816, How Healthy Lifestyle Changes Can Impact Relationships with Tara Vollman.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started. What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Yo, homies, I am excited for you to listen to this episode with Tara because we get into a really vulnerable conversation about divorce and healthy eating and relationships and how our own journeys have impacted relationships. So I think this is a great episode. So I'm excited for you to check that out. I'm also excited for you to check out a couple other things, which would be Sarah and Team Fit With Me. If you are looking for a health coach, if you're looking to make some healthy lifestyle changes and you need some help, because let's be real here, it's freaking hard. So whether you're looking to get stronger or lose weight, Sarah can help you out. Sarah has gone through her own journey where she has struggled with obesity, and then she went through getting her weight loss surgery and then also had issues with that. She hired her own coach, got on track, got hitting to all of her goals, then became a coach herself and now has a team of women that she works with and men and can help you reach your goals. So Sarah has lived this. She's super passionate about it. Sarah has been my coach. Sarah has been a longtime friend of this podcast. So if you're looking for somebody that's really going to be like, let's take a deep dive into your nutrition and let's figure out a plan and how are we going to attack this? What are your goals? Because we're going to hit them. Then Sarah is your girl. And she's got new packages and plans. So if you've looked into Sarah before and you're like, oh, this is out of my price point, go check her out now because she's kind of realigned some different things. She can work with you and your budget. Check her out, reach out, ask some questions, and really invest in your health. Go to teamfitwithme.com and check out Sarah. And again, just send her a message, ask some questions. If you got questions, don't be shy. Also wanted you to check out Clean Eats, specifically if you're in Cincinnati, in Newport. They are fantastic and have helped me out so much in the past year as I'm going through lots of life changes, job changes, relationship changes. I'm going through a move right now. So I definitely don't want to be like cooking and meal prepping and worrying about that while I'm packing and getting ready to move my entire life. So they are great too, because no matter what stage you're at, whether you're just like, I just need something that's convenient, then they're great. If you're like, I just need to be healthier and convenient, then they're great. Or if you're looking specific into macros and calories, they list all of that. So you have all that information to plug into your MyFitnessPal or a chronometer or whatever you use. I just had somebody reach out to me today asking about it, that she wants to check them out when she's done with her bodybuilding contest prep. So if you're you're in that stage of life, or you're just like, hey man, I just want somebody to cook for me and I want some healthier options. All across the board, Clean Eats can help you out with your healthy living goals. You can go in there and get the frozen grab and go meals, or I order the fresh meals. I do 21 meals a week because I really don't want to worry about anything when it comes to food. I'll let you do the cooking for me. Right now, I am doing my own breakfast and I'm trying to be more gluten-free. So then I'm picking and choosing meals every week that are gluten-free as possible for me. So that's the workaround I'm currently at. That's the stage of life where I'm at. So no matter where you're at, if you're looking to eat healthier, check out Clean Eats in Newport. They're awesome. All right, now let's get to Tara. Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine, returning guest, but it's been a full 2 years, so it's been a hot minute, is Tara Vollman. Hello, Tara.
Hey, so glad to be back. I can't believe it's already been 2 years.
I know.
That is crazy.
I looked it up because I'm going to bring up a point of why I wanted to have the conversation we're going to have now. And I was like, how long ago was that? Because I feel like, again, like time and space. I'm like, I know it was after COVID, obviously, but like, when was that? But it was apparently May 24th, 2021. So
Yeah, I
how,
feel like masks were still a thing when I
yeah,
was coming in, and yeah, it was fresh, so
I didn't re-listen to the episode, but I know that like in the notes I talked about like how we're surviving a COVID world. So I'm sure we talked heavily
yeah,
about
yeah,
the pandemic. But we
yeah.
originally talked about how you had lost 100 pounds, and I think that was the main basis of our conversation is that you had
Mhm.
this weight loss journey, which we can touch on here for a minute. But I wanted to have this conversation because the conversation we were having, because we recorded that one in person when we were just chatting before we started recording, is you had talked about how living this healthy lifestyle and changing everything that you had done had not only changed careers for you, and, where you became a personal trainer and done all these other things, but it also changed your relationship status. And that really resonated for me at the time because those were themes that me and my ex-husband were discussing and had been discussing for a while. And I'm like, I just held that little nugget. I'm like, oh man, I really want to have this conversation, but I don't want to go into this level of personal stuff because I'm not even sure what's going on here. And I don't want to like air dirty laundry and all this other stuff. So I'm like, oh, I want to have this conversation now as a
I
divorced
love that you
person.
remembered that. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Well, no, because like you're the first person. I mean, I have over 800 episodes. I've talked to so many people that have been on so many journeys, and you are one of the only people that brought that up. That was like
Mhm.
changing my lifestyle, losing this weight, doing this stuff affected my marriage, affected my relationship. And that really resonated with me as a person who had also lost a large amount of weight, changed my career, became a personal trainer. Like we have very like
Yep.
similar histories. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is a theme that I'm also dealing with in my relationship. And how interesting is that? Because I think that a thing that really scares me about it, or had scared me about it for a long time, was there's this cultural narrative of like once one person loses a weight, obviously they're going to leave the other person. They're going to leave them
Yes, totally.
behind because they're so hot and skinny now and like get
Yes,
out of
hell
here
yeah.
dead weight. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
didn't feel that way at all. Like that's not how I felt about the situation. That's not where I'm like, I'm in this hot body, I want to bang a bunch of randos. Like that is not
Yep.
how I felt at all. It was this wholly different like relationship shift in who we were and how we were growing together. But it's like, oh, but if you split up, then it has this like look of like, oh, well, she lost all this weight and then she got divorced.
Mhm.
Like she's looking to go out and, wore it out. And I'm like, no,
Yep.
that's not what's happening. Not that it matters what
Yeah.
other people think, but it was like, that was
I
playing in
know,
my
it's
head. And
hard.
I'm like, I'm sure you probably had some similar themes of what was going on in your head.
Oh yeah. So I'm not so many, I'm not gonna say so many, but that did come up often that that's what I was doing. Um, and at first I like constantly was trying to defend myself and I'm like, I'm not getting anywhere here. So I'm just gonna keep doing what feels right for me and move past it because you're right. Like that is just a very common perception. Like, oh, you lose weight, you think you're hot now, go get something better,
Yeah.
which is far from the case. So totally get that though. And yeah, fighting off those accusations is not fun. So
Yeah. So I'm going to put a pause on that and get back to you
yeah,
and your health journey, just for people that are listening to this that are curious that, didn't listen to this podcast 2 years ago. I guess give me
yeah.
some of your backstory that kind of led to where we are right now.
Yeah, so, for those who haven't listened, I have been overweight probably my entire life. We're looking at a family album last week, and definitely at least since 3rd grade, so, a long time, and tried everything, played sports, did all the activities, and nothing really worked. Um, as far as losing weight, tried Weight Watchers as a 12-year-old, all that good stuff. So, was constantly aware and was constantly trying. Um, Nothing ever stuck. And then I finally found HIIT training, high intensity interval training, that was working for me. And so I started working out. Someone kind of took me under my wing with my eating habits and kind of built a whole new lifestyle and focus. Once I saw results, I just kept wanting more and more. Um, Seeing that for the first time in my life, something was actually attainable and I was enjoying it. So that snowballed me in, and I eventually lost over 100 pounds. And with that, I was like, I want to help people do the same thing, whether it's not losing weight, just believing in themselves and actually seeing something happen um, from other things that they had been trying. So I quit my job and went into work at a gym, got my certification, all that good stuff, which rolled me in to where I am now. I teach fitness in the Cincinnati area at Shred 415. And continue to keep health a main focus. So I'm still down probably about 80, 90 pounds. COVID took me for a little turn and I haven't bounced back and I'm okay with that. I've found more sustainability and constantly just working to be better, in all areas, but that's where I am now. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, the maintenance part is so hard. Like, not only is it hard to lose it, but then to continue to live with that, especially when you go through hard life stuff, like you're going through a global pandemic or
yeah,
job changes or relationship changes. It's really hard not to, I mean, spoken as a person who has definitely slid back into old patterns.
yeah,
It's hard not to, at least for me, go to like food for comfort and like, but I think for me, it's been like you go within such a different mindset and you've learned so many things and you have so many like tools in your toolbox of how am I going to deal with
yes.
this? That's the biggest
Hmm.
change where it's, at least for me now, it's not like, oh, I gained this weight back. I lost this much, but I gained it. But this is how I'm really maintaining my health and really understanding my behaviors now and
Yeah,
how this is a season and how do I get through this? I don't know. I feel like that's something that isn't really discussed a ton either, at least on social media, because it's not this pretty before and after
definitely not.
picture
Yeah,
of
right.
how did you learn all of these things. And yeah, maybe the scale reads a little bit higher than it did at your lowest point, but like how further are you ahead of yourself? Like I'm just like, I am light years from where I used to be, no matter what
Oh,
the scale
yeah.
says.
Yes, absolutely, and I think you made a good reference, like, the toolbox. Like, I have so many tools now, especially, like, who I'm surrounded with, so I have lots of people to lean into as well, and I keep myself set up for success because of that toolbox. I know, you know, what's gonna help me maintain my best self and, mentally, physically, emotionally, I'm probably the best I've been, even though even though I know I've weighed less,
Yeah.
quote unquote, that which people think that's the end game and it's not. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think like you said, maintaining is a bitch and nobody talks about it. But I do kind of come at it as a mindset like life is always going to be up and down. So I've been practicing for 3 years now, about when I'm not at that peak necessarily that I had seen. Like I'm constantly practicing for what's next. So
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that's a great place to be.
So how did this like weight loss journey play into your relationship that you were in, like from when you met and who you were and where you were at on your journey and then kind of along the process?
Yeah, so, when I was married to a college friend, and so we did all the college things, right? So we partied together, we lazy, slothy Sundays, with fast food. Um, no, I don't think I had a workout regimen, like, I probably went to the gym every once in a while, um, went for a walk, all that good stuff, and that's what defined our relationship most of the time. I got married in my late 20s. Um, and so that's what you did then. And then as things started evolving, friend groups kind of split up. It started kind of becoming just us, maybe with a sparingly person here and there. And then I started working out. My mom, like I said, invited me to all these workouts. Finally, I broke down and said, yes, I went. I really enjoyed it. And that's when I started feeling, not right away, but probably 6 months into it or something, putting my health as a focus and it wasn't necessarily matching up to what we had always done. So, not saying that you need to completely be eye to eye on everything, but just habits were changing and habits that made up my day to day, which is where we were connecting. And so, did I answer that?
No, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think with the levels we were connecting prior were no longer there. And then you're left with what's left, what is left.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Yeah, very similar. Like we met when it was like a week outside of my 22nd birthday, and he just got out of college, and we are just very drinking party mode. Also got married in my late 20s. But so when things changed for me, like I think it was just kind of a slow shift. And it's just like, not that we wouldn't still do things together, but it became more and more of like, and especially because I really got into like nature and hiking and outdoors, of like, I want to go do these things, and that's not his jam, which is fine. I'm not going to make you do something that you don't want to do, but I'm not going to not do it.
and then you almost create separate lives.
Yeah.
From my experience, and which leads to disconnection.
Yeah. So totally. So like for me, it was, I want to go do these things, and I'm going to go to a gym, and I'm going to go hiking, and I want to travel, and I want to do these things, and I don't want to not live my life. Like I would love if you want to go, and he didn't. So it was like, okay, well, we don't have to do everything together. Like it was just definitely a conversation of, it's healthy to have different interests, but then, especially when I got really into meal prepping, and then I'm prepping my meals, and he eats a completely different way, which people that have followed me on Instagram for a long time know that, like, they would always ask me like, well, what does he eat? And I'm like, he eats like pizza rolls and ice cream and beer.
Yeah. Right.
Which is fine. I'm not going to force him to eat my way, and he can't really force him to eat my way. But then again, it's just like one of those other disconnects of like, well, now we don't eat together anymore. And so before, we would go out and we'd eat like garbage together. And that's, fine. I'm not saying that I still didn't do that, but it was just like on a day-to-day routine basis. We're not eating together. None of our activities are together, and we're like living these separate lives. And it was a conversation of like, hey man, like between both of us, like, I don't want you to not live the life that you want to live, but it's like, but we're not doing anything together anymore. And that's really sad. And that's a big bummer. So it's like, how are we compatible in the ways that we were before? And people change and people grow. And it's hard, because it's like, I would never deter anybody from like living a healthy lifestyle or changing their habits, but it is interesting how it does change so many things in your life, including relationships. And I've definitely openly talked about how I had, who I was considering one of my best friends at the time, who just totally pieced out on me from losing weight. And that really sucked. So it's like, okay, well, me and her we're not doing the same stuff anymore. And we're not in the same headspace. And so that's got to break up, and it's painful. And how when you really work on yourself and love yourself through all of this stuff, then you realize, oh, are these people good for me? Is this person who's constantly talking me out to go out and binge drink all the time? Like, is that really what I want anymore? And how good of friends are we? If I'm not doing that with them, then they don't talk to me. And so it's like, I don't know, it's such a hard shift. Ultimately, it's for the better, because it's for you. And that's why I'm like, I don't want anybody to hear that and be like, oh God, why would I make healthy choices if everything just kind of falls apart? Like it sounds terrible, but it's like, it's crazy how you just don't even realize how your life is set up in those ways, and how that's going to change.
Yeah. Well, they say your life is, you're most like the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that. And so, I mean, that all makes so much sense, that the people you surround yourself with, those are going to be the activities you do. So adjusting that circle accordingly makes the most sense, And I know you're probably a little bit like me in the fact that I wanted to make sure I didn't gain 100 pounds back.
Yeah.
And so I really had to effectively change my habits, which included some circle. So really important for success, for sure.
Yeah. But like so freaking hard. Or like
so freaking hard. Yeah.
And just like setting up boundaries and stuff too. And then like, and this is just people in general. So I'm not like, but especially coworkers for me, that it's like, or the people, then you're like, okay, like, yeah, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my thing. But while I'm here, I'm going to order a salad, or I'm going to do my own thing. And then they just dogpile on you, and they're like, come on, you don't need it. Like, then it's like, I'm not doing this to put a spotlight on me. Like, just let me make my choices, or I'm like, or I'll meet you there. I'm going to walk there. And then everybody just hassles you for it. And you're like, I'm not doing this to like make you feel bad. And how it's just because like, again, you shift or you change or you're highlighting something within them that like makes them
Yes.
ticked off. And so it's
Right.
like, God. And I see why so many people would be like, all right, I'm going to bail on this because people around me are hassling me for it.
Yeah, don't make it easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And that
Mhm.
sucks because all you're trying to do is be like, I just want to like feel good.
Yeah, right. Yeah. God forbid, right? This is how I feel good. So let me live.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know, it's wild. And that's one of the things where, at least for me in my marriage, it was like, I'm doing all of these things to make myself better and be my best self. And it just, to me, for a long time, it doesn't make sense of like, how could this not make things better? And how is this making things worse? And
Yeah,
not that was the
right.
only like issue, but I think that it's interesting. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because like whenever you brought that up, like that really resonated with me of like, oh man, I want to talk about that. And I want to explore that because I have a lot of feelings around that, of my own guilt and shame of like, that feels like incredibly selfish of me
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
want to take
Mhm.
care of myself, and that's going to hurt somebody else in the process. Like that blows. It's like, that's not my intention. And so, but I feel like it's so taboo to talk about those sorts of things that it's like, well, maybe this is a healthy thing, or even how many people are feeling that way in relationships, but not speaking up to their partner about like,
Yeah, no, I have a feeling that's quite high, because it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. So that's not easy, you know?
yeah, I mean, you don't have to answer this, but how'd that conversation go for you?
Well, I wasn't very good with that stuff at that point in time. I've got more tools in my toolkit, but I think I just constantly kept drawing a bigger divide. You know, I just would bring up stuff and kind of almost poke at the bear, um, to get the conversation started. I was never mature enough to just sit down and be like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." I would just kind of be like, "Oh, why aren't you coming?" Or, "Oh, why don't you work out?" Or,
Mm.
"Oh, you're eating Jet's pizza again." Like, I would just be more annoying about it because, again, I didn't have that toolkit at all at that point in time. Um, and so just or continuously trying to make it prevalent, like, "Hey, look, we are not a good fit. Do you see this too?" That kind of thing. Um, I mean, we did have conversations down the line, but that's how I initiated it, was just being a pest.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
not advised, but
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do it. So,
I mean, it's hard just to be, it's crazy how it's such a struggle just to be like completely like open and transparent. Like
yeah,
why is that so hard for all of us to be like, hey, this is just like what I'm really especially it's like, I feel like too, especially when you are like in a relationship like that with somebody, when you're like with a partner that you're in a serious relationship with, like that feels like the person you should be, out of everyone else on this planet, you should be able to be like, I'm just going to lay this out here because
right,
we're doing
right.
this thing together. And how sometimes that's the hardest person to be like, this is how I actually feel. And it's like,
Yeah,
this isn't like intellectually, it doesn't make sense, but somehow like your heart's like, nah, girl, don't do that.
yeah, yeah. I know, and like you said, you don't wanna hurt someone's feelings. That I definitely didn't wanna do that, you know? So, and I felt selfish about it, so I didn't know how to talk about it because it is a very selfish feeling.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too of like, I definitely lived with it and was mostly fine with it, but it is a struggle. I think, and this is nothing against him, so I'm not trying to knock him, but like he also didn't understand any of my weight. He's never had a weight issue. Like he's one of those people
Yeah.
that like could just eat whatever and not gain any weight, which is fine. It's just, I'm jealous. But like
Yeah.
also like, and also having like binge eating disorder and having this like relationship with food of like, it was just to have all of the junk food and all this stuff in the house all the time, which is fine. Like,
yeah.
again, like I'm not going to tell you to not eat that because of me. I want you to live your life. But I had to do double time work on all this
Yep.
stuff that I'm going through of like, how do I, like I'm having a bad day and I know there's a whole bag of Ruffles and French onion dip in here. And
Yeah.
how do I not just obliterate it in 2 minutes? and how do I have to go through,
Yeah.
which is good because I feel like it made me a lot stronger of like, hey, it's here and I just got to go through the
Being
fire.
able to have it.
Yeah. Of what's important to me and what makes me feel good. How am I going to feel on the other side of this? It's not like I'm going to be able to avoid these sorts of things for the rest of my life. Like I'm an adult. I can go to Kroger right now and get whatever the hell I want. So it's, I guess like it's good. It makes you stronger. But at the same time, I'm like, you have to live in it 24/7 and it's always around you. And it's like a level of difficulty that for me that I'm like, you can't make somebody understand that doesn't understand it. You know what I mean? Not that there wasn't any empathy or there's any maliciousness to it, but it was also like, dude, this is hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're like, again, that selfish thing, like, oh, you can't bring those Oreos in here because I might eat them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just being like, okay, you sound ridiculous. But yeah, I went through the same thing. I would be like, you need to put that on the top shelf.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, but I know they're on the top shelf.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I would ask
I
stuff,
experienced
certain
that
things
same
be
thing.
hidden.
Yeah.
Like cheese balls had to be hidden from me. Like that's a weak spot. It was just like the
Yeah.
crappiest, like most unhealthy, like not of this earth orange cheese balls. And then also Girl Scout cookies. Cause I'm like, I can't help myself to buy them every year. And
Yeah.
so for the Girl Scout cookies, because those would be my purchase, I would ask him, I'm like, I need you to hide these. And then when I tell you, I'm like, I need some Girl Scout cookies.
Go
I
pull
need to
them
give me
out.
a handful. Don't let me see the whole box. You give me
Right.
a handful and then don't tell me where the rest of them are.
Yeah, exactly. So was he supportive in that way?
Yeah, he was really supportive. So I don't want to give off any air that he wasn't supportive at all.
No,
Like he was,
I think mine was too, and I think that's what makes it
harder.
even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if he would have been a douche about it, then I've been like, oh, no, hell no. Like I'm trying to do something good for myself. I'm not going to tolerate somebody that's here actively not being here for it, which it's really sad how many people do live in that because that is very prevalent. But no, he was super supportive and it's just one of those things where it's like that's not the life he chose and it's a life I chose and it's not the life that we chose for the first 7 years of being together. And so all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, I'm really into all of this. And obviously like I'm really into it. I've like been doing this for years and changed my whole life around, after my healthy lifestyle choices. So I'm like, this isn't changing. This isn't a fad. This is like who I am now. And how that just kind of like changes dynamics. And yeah, it's just a hard conversation because of like, I would never expect anybody else to live the same way that I live. Like, you don't have to eat like me. You don't have to exercise like me. You don't have to like do your own thing. But at the same time, like, where are we going to meet in the middle and have common interests? At least for him, like the stuff he liked to do, I was not very into either, which was mostly just like, let's like watch movies and play video games. And I'm like, that's cool for you. But I'm like, I don't want to spend my entire day off just chilling all day doing nothing, which I used to do. I mean, some days I do. So I'm not going to, I just don't want to do it every weekend.
Yeah.
So it's like,
sure.
But like, okay, well, we're doing drastically two different things. You want to just like chill on the couch all day. And I'm like, I want to see if I can walk 20 miles.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, we're on two different pages here.
Yeah. So it's hard where it's just kind of one of those things where, at least for me, it's not like the only reason, but it definitely played a role into, things kind of shifting and changing and growing in different directions. And that's where I also feel it feels like selfish, like we discussed, but then like I brought up too, it also feels like, I wouldn't want to say that is like some bad thing about living like a healthier lifestyle for yourself of like that. I don't know. I don't ever want it to come across of like, you do this thing and then, things crumble or fall apart and because it takes two people to have that thing too. So it's not just like you make these choices and now this is inevitable. It's like whoever you're in a relationship with, these either conversations that have to like happen and grow. And like, that's what I think when they talk about like things get tough and you got to go through it. Like you have to, how do we grow together in similar directions instead of drifting off separate ways? And like, that is a challenge whenever you're with somebody long term.
Yeah, for sure. And like piggybacking off that, like, I think my weight loss journey just amplified things, not necessarily created things. It just made, oh, the diversion a little bit bigger, or hey, we really didn't have that much in common to begin with, but now it's really obvious, or
Ah,
you know what I'm saying? I don't think it created problem. I don't think it created the issues. I just think it made them um, much more prevalent.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And no, it's interesting because it's like how many different layers it is to where it's just kind of like, oh, you lose weight. And like, oh, well, no, it has so many different layers of like the relationships that you're in, your own body image relationship, your relationship with food,
mhm.
your relationship with movement, your relationship with daily habits and routines. Like it's how it really has to, and again, if like long term of like healthy living, not even just saying
Yeah,
weight loss, of like how it is going to impact like every level of where you're at. Cause even just like in workplaces, like how much it's affected where I'm willing to do with my career of like, I am no
yeah,
longer willing to be in a place that makes me feel like garbage because I know what it feels like to feel like garbage. And I know I can change that. And I have the power to shift into something better. And it's painful and it's hard to go through the process. Like it's not easy to lose 100 pounds, but it's like, but I feel better and more authentically who I am going through that process. So I'm like, if I'm in a toxic environment, whether that be work or family or anything,
mhm.
then it's like, this
Yes.
ain't it. And I'm going to have to change it. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to live in this pain like I lived in the other pain.
Yes, and I think that's a big piece of it too, is like the confidence you gain in yourself to be able to eliminate those situations, or when it doesn't feel right, taking the right steps to make those changes. And that's probably, now that you said that, it's been one of the biggest things that I've probably caught on to too, is like you don't have to stay somewhere, not talking about relationship, just
Yeah.
general feeling. You don't have to stay somewhere that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. And
And I'm not a quitter. Like I grew up not quitting things, but I've learned to graciously step out, of things, which I think you always grow up like don't quit at anything. I was always had to finish the season with the team or whatever that was. But I think if it's not right, it's okay to step out, and being able to get that confidence, whether it's stepping out of a relationship or stepping out of a workplace or stepping out of a friendship, um, has been such a great tool in my toolkit.
yeah. Well, not only those, I mean,
So,
those really big ones are obviously really hard and painful, but like even thinking about smaller things of like, hey, I don't feel like this movement anymore. Like for you, if you were just like, hey, I really fell in love with HIIT workouts, maybe I'm not feeling it anymore. Maybe I need to switch to yoga. Or like I just see
yeah,
that a lot with fitness of just like, hey, I'm really into running, at least for me, and then my knees blew out, and then I'm like, oh well, I need to get more into strength training, and finding a
yeah,
new love and switching, and like you're gonna have to like move and shift in mindset in just even those smaller pieces of your journey, because it's the one thing that you do and you're gonna fall in love with, you can't do till the end of time. Like you could probably do layers
exactly.
of it, but you can't go hard and like do HIIT workouts 7 days a week if that's what you love. You can't do that when you're like 80, probably.
Right. I
Um,
can't do that anymore anyway. But yes.
so it's just even then of having like, oh, well, how do I quit this gym, or how do I, quit like that?
Yeah,
Even that seems like,
absolutely.
even if you're like going to Planet
Mhm.
Fitness and it's not like this local place with, you don't know who owns it. Like, how hard is it just for you to be like, this isn't for me anymore, and I'm going to walk away from
Mhm.
this for something different? And it's just like, even those little decisions, like you second guess yourself so hard of like, well, maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm just not trying hard enough, or maybe I'm just having excuses. And then you'll just dogpile on yourself of all the reasons why like you're the problem, instead of why this thing maybe just doesn't fit for you anymore, until you finally get sick of your own garbage, and then you finally quit, and then you
Right.
feel so much better. And then we all go through
Yeah.
that like over and over again.
Should have done that forever ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm so
Yeah.
guilty of
It's weird
that.
how it all intertwines.
Yeah.
It's
So,
crazy.
so where are you at now with like your health and wellness and all these things that, how do you feel, or what part of your journey are you on, I guess?
I don't know, that's a great question. Um, I feel very, very solid, with where I'm at right now, just with everything, like, my strength training, my HIIT training, my teaching, group classes, my I work a full-time job now, um, my mental state, like, I feel because I've consciously and consistently made these decisions that I've found myself in a good spot.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I'm surrounded by really good people. I have jobs I really like. I have workouts I really like. Like you said, I got more into strength training, versus interval training all the time just 'cause I'm 36. I know it's not that old, but for my body, it just wasn't working, every day anymore, and so, changing that. But I just feel like I've been able to set boundaries and, clear communication with myself at what feels good and what's best for the big picture. Um, yeah, so I'm just in like a good steady spot. There's nothing crazy high, there's nothing crazy low. Um, and I'm enjoying that for right now.
Yeah. Balance.
So balance, damn it. Yes.
So I don't know
Took me a while, but yes.
what your relationship status is now, but has this going through this process in, ending your marriage, has that played a role into future relationships of like, hey, I need somebody that's more on the same path in this lifestyle with me moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely it's hard in, in that dating world. So you definitely like I do have a boyfriend, by the way.
Okay.
We've been together a little over 2.5 years.
Oh, dang.
Um, but I think, yeah, I know a long time, right? He said he liked yoga on his profile. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be perfect. He likes to move. Um, but I think being very intentional when selecting, which that was a whole learning process. We've definitely had to work at that continuously over the past years, because I'm constantly worried I'm going to get stuck in the same thing I was in, and I don't want to do that. So I'm constantly trying my best to be open communication, um, making sure we're on the same page instead of letting it get to the end game and then saying something.
Mhm.
So I think that's been really effective. And yeah, definitely the healthy eating is a priority, which is very helpful as well. And I am trying to let some things go. Like, does like to watch movies, and that's okay sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think just again having balance is really important, and it looks like for me has been important
Yeah.
when making those decisions. So
That's awesome. So if somebody,
yeah.
well, before I get to this part, I just wanted to say thank you for having like this really open, vulnerable conversation with me. Cause I know this is like something I haven't like discussed a ton. And so for me, I was just like, well, I want to talk with somebody that's had a similar experience, and for like, at least for me to like give a safe space to have like this sort of conversation,
Yeah.
because it's a vulnerable conversation to talk about those sorts of things. So I really appreciate that you're willing to come on my podcast and like openly talk about that stuff. I think that's really awesome, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
And then
Happy to bring some real life stuff, because like I don't feel like people talk about breaking up or losing a friendship or making a bad choice or all the time. So I think what this might be going off tangent, but when you told me one time at your podcast, that seminar thing you went to, what was it? That summit conference?
oh yeah.
You were talking about how you learned the most from hearing about people's like I don't want to say sufferings
Their
or where they went
failures.
wrong or their
Yeah.
failures. Yeah. You learned like that was your favorite piece about it. And that's really stuck with. And I just think that that's so important to hear people talk about, what went wrong or what they failed at or, what didn't feel good. Cause I feel like oftentimes we only hear about the end game or the win or not how people got there and not the hard decisions that we have to go make every single day. Um, and I think that's important to make people feel normal and like you said, there's not shame around it or hopefully can help alleviate some of that. Um, And I think this is one of those conversations. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Well, they at that conference, it was somebody from like that did the TED Talk podcast and somebody from NPR, and they just went. Their whole slideshow was things that they tried, they failed at, and it made me feel so much better because a lot of those things I had tried, I'm like, oh, I must just suck at this. So it's like I
Right.
just really went into this be like, oh, I blow at it, like it's just me, and I just can't figure it out. But to be like, you know, the people that do the TED Talk podcast obviously know what they're doing.
Right.
The same thing
right.
with the NPR podcast to be like, no, we tried this and it just like failed for us. I'm like, oh, it just gave me so much relief to be like, oh man, I'm like, I'm not alone in this. This isn't my fault. I'm just doing the wrong things.
Yeah.
So I just feel like stuff like that is so helpful, especially talking about like the health and wellness stuff of like, I just don't want to feel like alone because I know specifically for me with like the binge eating and stuff like that forever, like that was extremely shameful. And I never even said that out loud or even realized that what this was until I started this podcast. So I never spoke those words until I was into a microphone for this podcast. And I'm like, wow, how much it just really opened up a world for me to be like, I can say that and how much feedback I've gotten from other people because it's like, we're not discussing this with each other because we feel so horrible about it and feel like we're the only one going through it. I must be the only one that like hits up a gas station on the way home and then power eats an entire box of something and then hides the trash outside before I go into the house and nobody know, like act like it didn't happen and things like that of no, like it's happening. I just don't want to feel like I'm the only one going through it. So I think like putting light on these sorts of conversations just make us feel like it's not gonna, it kind of doesn't completely solve the problem, but I'm like, man, at least I can work on it now, knowing that I'm like, it's not this, how could this possibly ever be fixed?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that about all of this. A lot of the conversations you have, just opening that door and letting people know, you know, they're not alone.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So if somebody is in Cincinnati and they're like, dang, I want to go work out with Tara and do one of her classes, like, what's the process of going to Shred?
Process of going to Shred, you can hop on the Shred 415 app or MindBody, or DM me. So my Instagram's TBreezy9es _ be fit. So
I'll put it in the show notes.
I can sign them up too. Okay, yeah, there you
that
go.
makes it easier to put the link in there.
Yeah. And Shred 415 is a interval training workout, which is what I fell in love with and what gave me the encouragement to, you know, follow my wellness journey. So that's why I love teaching it. And I hope that shows in those 60 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I took one of your classes last year. I thought it was awesome. I had a great time.
Yeah.
And also fun, just shout out too that you created the image for my Pound This party and did the graphics for that.
Oh yeah.
And also did the graphics for my Pound This poster that's in Clean Eats, which is super cool. Which is awesome. So
I love to help out with that stuff, especially when there's pink involved. I don't often get to do stuff with pink, so thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate you. You do such an awesome job, and you're so talented. So I'm like, I really appreciate with your help with like I'm not a graphic design person, so I just think that's amazing. Like you're just talented in so many ways. So I'm glad that I can make you a part of what I'm doing. And
weave it in, baby.
What'd you say?
I love it too. I said, weave me in.
Yeah.
Weave me in.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you for having this conversation with me, and we'll have to check in again in another 2 years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's crazy to think about, but that sounds great. Thanks for having me.
AmandaValentineBites.com